Hi everyone, welcome back to Current Affairs Unfiltered. I'm your host, Paige Fulment. I got back from Europe on last Wednesday and it was a great time. It was really interesting to go and honestly talk politics with people. Completely not like by my instigating. It was a lot of people just purely curious as to what my perspective was, to be honest. I feel like they were trying to subtly be like, so did you vote for this or was that like somebody else? Of course it was somebody else, but there were lots of people that were just curious as to what my views were. And I think if you are going overseas this summer or anytime in the next 3.5 years, there are people that are willing to like talk about this stuff. And I feel like what the view tends to be is that people know that it's not all of America and it's just this group of people. And coincidentally, that group of people does not tend to travel abroad. I don't know. It was a fun time besides just feeling vindicated in that people still like Americans as people generally. But otherwise, I had a good time. My mom and I were in Spain and Portugal, and I have nothing but good things to say about Madrid and Portugal too. And if you are going to Portugal, I have a great tour guide recommendation for you. So DM me, I'll give you his information. But while I was away, there was much chaos. I was not on social media that much. I got really freaked out by the stories of people coming back from trips and being stopped at the border because of what was on their phone or who they were or whatever. So I deleted all of my like podcast social media. I deleted my secondary Twitter account where I yell at Republicans. And then I show up, I land back in Chicago and I have global entry. So I get in the global entry line and there's one global entry like gate open and I just breezed right through. I was so concerned that somebody was going to be asking questions and I just breezed right through. So I don't know whether to feel silly because ultimately those stories are still true. They still happened, but I clearly over-prepared for my specific situation. But yeah, so highly recommend getting out of the United States right now for a quick little girly trip. But, you know, the news continues and it was a pretty interesting news week. I am recording this on Saturday morning at about 10 a.m. Eastern time, which is a little bit late for me to be recording a solo episode that comes out on Monday, but I was going to record this on Wednesday, but Wednesday is, of course, when Elon Musk and Donald Trump as a relationship imploded. So I wanted to kind of wait and let the dust settle on that before I said anything about that. And yeah, so here we are. This is going to be a little bit of an abbreviated episode. It's just been a little bit of chaos since I got back. Very busy, so I don't have as many stories as usual, but what I have is interesting to say the least. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill, which now has an acronym because the only thing DC loves more than acronyms is sadomasochistic freaks. Republicans are calling it the OBBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill. I love an acronym for bills where they're fun. The Financial Literacy for Youth FLY Act, like that's fun. The OBBB, like that's not even catchy. Whatever. Anyways, the bill, as we talked about in a previous episode, is a massive tax and spending package and has ignited controversy within his own party at this point. The bill proposes extending the 2017 tax cuts and ultimately adds $2.4 trillion with a T to the national debt over the next 10 years. And additionally, it includes provisions like a decade-long moratorium on state-level AI regulations, meaning that states would be unable to pass laws restricting AI for the next 10 years, which I don't care where you stand on AI, but that's a bit of a problem. It infringes on states' rights a bit, saying you can't make laws about this certain thing, and sets the precedent for, in the future, bills to include things like states will be unable to make laws on abortion in the next 10 years or immigration in the next 10 years. Like, it's just a slippery slope. But the reason this specific provision caught a lot of attention in the last week is because Marjorie Taylor Greene, everybody's favorite icon, tweeted and said, and I quote, "Full transparency. I did not know about this section on pages 278 to 279 of the OBBB that strips states of the right to make laws or regulate AI for 10 years. I am adamantly opposed to this, and it is a violation of state rights, and I would have voted no if I had known this was in there. We have no idea what AI will be capable of in the next 10 years, and giving it free rein and tying states' hands is potentially dangerous. This needs to be stripped out in the Senate. When the OBBB comes back to the House for approval after Senate changes, I will not vote for it with this in it. We should be reducing federal power and preserving state power, not the other way around. especially with rapidly developing AI that even the experts warn they have no idea what it may be capable of. Pretty coherent take from Marjorie Taylor Greene. However, she's basically admitted that she didn't read the bill. And if she personally didn't read the bill, then the staff in her office, whose literal job it is to comb through this and figure out where the red flags are for her, did not read the bill or read it and didn't think to flag this as a problem. Eric Swalwell, the representative from California, responded and said, "You have one job, to read the fucking bill." Good point, Eric Swalwell. She does need to read the bill, and this was something that was kind of, this provision specifically was bubbling up. I think I saw a video or something on it the week that I left, so it was like the week of Memorial Day when the bill was starting to pass in the House, right before it passed in the House. And so people knew about this, like the public had caught on to it, and Marjorie Taylor Greene apparently did not. The other thing about the One Big Beautiful Bill, which we will get into this in a little bit about Elon and Trump, is that Elon is starting to kind of sow distrust around the bill. His whole point is the spending within the bill, and he's ultimately upset that it drives up the deficit, which he has a point. It's hypocritical for Republicans to raise the deficit after 4 years not passing any budget plan because it would raise the deficit, which, okay, that's fine if your stance is that the deficit should be raised, but then you can't be saying, well, we need to pass this bill, it does this for immigration, whatever, and then also simultaneously raises the deficit by trillions of dollars. So Elon Musk is upset about that kind of hypocrisy, which, like, fair, to be honest. And he's been tweeting that the bill's a hot mess. What Musk first said in response to the bill, this was after departing the White House: "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it." Now, again, he has a point. He does seem to be following the same kind of train of thought, because Democrats, I think right before the election, tried to pass a spending bill, and it was 1,000 pages long, as these things tend to be. And he killed the bill, essentially, by tweeting and saying, this shouldn't be 1,000 pages. Okay, well, they revised it and just did a continuing resolution to keep spending at the same levels. So he is staying consistent in his thought process. Not to give him credit for anything, but he's being consistent and calling out the straight hypocrisy that is going on right in front of us. Ultimately, this bill still needs to pass in the Senate. The Senate can strip stuff out and then send it back to the House to be passed again. So I don't think Elon is going to be able to kill this bill, but it's unclear at this point who is Team Elon and who is Team Trump. Most Republicans in Congress seem to be Team Trump, but I feel as though Elon has a little bit more sway with the American people, which is ultimately who these representatives and senators respond to. So I'm interested to see how this unfolds by the end of it, to be quite honest, but we will see. But moving on to Elon and Trump beefing on Twitter, which Twitter is at this point like a hellhole. It's not a very fun place to be quite honest with you. But on days like Thursday on Twitter, I've never been more thankful that I have chosen to go down with the ship. Every time I refresh my Twitter feed on Thursday, it was banger after banger, okay? The content that these two nuts were putting out was glorious. So like I said, it started with that tweet by Elon Musk that basically said, I can't stand it anymore. The bill's so massive and da-da-da-da. And this is all after Musk departed the White House. And at his departure press conference, he has a black eye and is absolutely on some sort of drug. If you go watch the videos of the press conference, I swear to God, there's a moment where he starts rolling. Anyways, so that happens, and days later is when these, not even days, a day later is when these tweets start to come out. So after Musk tweets that he does not support the OBBB, he doesn't really get a response from Trump. And so he says again, a new spending bill should be drafted that doesn't massively grow the deficit and increase the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. Again, consistent thoughts by Musk. Don't agree with him, but stay consistent. The next day, so this Thursday, Trump says in a press conference, Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here. Musk replies to this and says, false. This bill was never shown to me even once and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could even read it. Another fair point by Elon Musk. Remember, I woke up on, I think they passed it on the Sunday night before Memorial Day. I remember waking up on Memorial Day and being like, wait, what? What do you mean it passed? Like, it was literally, I think they passed it at like 5 in the morning in DC time. Trump then starts to truth social post at Musk, saying that he was going to take away government subsidies from government contracts that Musk has with his companies, and saying, quote, "The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it." Okay, now here's the thing. Elon Musk, for all of his like shittiness, when Biden was president, Elon Musk was not the villain that he is now, first of all. Second of all, what his companies do generally, the space stuff, the electric cars, the research component, like all the government contracts that he have are generally creating good. I think I almost vomited saying that, but like what he's doing is good things. Like I'm not sure why Biden would have ended the subsidies, like whatever. Anyways, then things take a turn. Things take a turn from the worst. So just so we're all tracking here, Trump has just said, "I want to get rid of the subsidies that Elon has for his government contracts." Musk responds 30 minutes later and says, "Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." What? Trump said, "I want to end your subsidies." And Musk responded and said, "Aren't you a pedophile?" One, what an odd response to somebody saying that they're going to end your subsidies, first of all. A little bit blown out of proportion, if I do say so myself. And that's coming from a girl who's certifiably insane. Now, do I think Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? Yes, he is in the publicly available documents about like flight logs and like other stuff. He's literally a known associate of Epstein. That isn't changing. It's not exactly that he's tweeting a truth bomb. It's more that in the sphere that he's in, the right wing does not believe that Trump is involved or was involved with Epstein. So from their perspective and his audience, that is a bit of a truth bomb. For me, it wasn't a truth bomb, but like, okay. Anyways, so getting rid of your subsidies, response is, "You're a pedophile." Okay. Trump does not even acknowledge the Epstein complaint and says, "I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. It's a record cut in expenses, $1.6 trillion, and the biggest tax cut ever given." Okay. "If this bill doesn't pass, there will be a 68% tax increase and things far worse than that. I didn't create this mess. I'm just here to fix it. This puts our country on a path of greatness. Make America great again." I like don't have anything to say to that. Like it's full of just self-hype and nonsense, but that was his response. His response to being called a pedophile was like, guys, you should totally still vote for my bill. Again, things take a turn for the worst. This guy who's like a conservative right-wing influencer, he doesn't even live in the United States, but that's another story. His name is Ian Miles Chong. He tweets and says Trump should be impeached and JD Vance should replace him. To which Elon Musk quote tweets and responds, "Yes." So again, Musk's responses to Trump have been, "You're a pedophile and you should be impeached." Which, do I agree? Kind of. But like, these are not reactions that are in line with the shots being thrown at him. Then Elon says what we've all been thinking for the last 4 months. The Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. Again, not exactly something monumental to say for people on the left that have believed this for months, but for people that are in his circle, people that are following him to get information, him saying this does have some impact, I think. Trump also at some point accused Musk of having Trump derangement syndrome, which is the insult that Republicans like to throw around at anybody that disagrees with Trump. It's often in my TikTok comments if you would like to go accuse me of having TDS, and then said the man has lost his mind. As far as I'm concerned, the both of them have lost their minds. And this all ended essentially with Trump saying that he was going to sell or donate the Tesla that Musk gave him, and then both of them kind of saying that they weren't interested in reconciling. They're not really looking to ease tensions, essentially. Now, as for impact, like I said, in regards to the bill, I'm not 100% sure. I really don't see how this ends up at this point. Everything just seems so volatile, but it really all depends what Musk ends up doing. I understand that Trump is the most powerful person in the world, but Musk holds the power of the money. So is he going to continue to donate to conservative causes and pump hundreds of millions of dollars into our elections? Like, that's what's going to be the big determinant. To me, at least. He did throw out some nutty tweet that was like, I should make a political party that represents the 80% in the middle. The 80% in the middle includes people like me who believe in basic human rights, immigration, but also simultaneously includes people that want no immigration whatsoever. I'm the 80% in the middle is like, whatever. He's tweeting nonsense. So I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm definitely interested to see about it. I'm kind of happy that I waited to record this until they were done tweeting at each other, because I was going to record this on Wednesday when it was like starting to bubble up. And then I was like, I should wait because these guys only get crazier after dark. Okay. And I'm glad that I waited. The other thing riling Trump up is the taco nickname, which stands for Trump always chickens out. Taco. It gained traction as a critique of Trump's tendency to backtrack on aggressive tariff threats. It was coined by a Financial Times columnist, and the term spread through financial circles and social media, leading to public mockery and reportedly frustrating Trump. When one reporter explicitly asked him about it, he called the question nasty and railed against the reporter. The reporter had said something like, do you have a response to taco? And he was like, what does that mean? And the reporter goes, Trump always chickens out. And he responds and goes, Trump always kicks out? Like, he's thinking they're talking about like immigration. And the reporter's like, no, like chickens out. Like, you don't stand behind the tariffs. And Trump like really kind of melted down on camera. Like, he was literally like, that's the nastiest question you could have ever asked. Da, 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 da. So safe to say that the acronym has gotten under its skin. But I do worry that this will make him not chicken out of spite and crash the economy. I will also say that the Democrat response to this has been like kind of cringy. Like, they got a taco truck to go sit outside of the RNC, which I was like, that's like, it's giving Hillary Clinton. Like, it stopped, the whole Musk and Trump thing stopped being funny the minute Chuck Schumer's intern tweeted, or media person, Chuck Schumer's social media person tweeted in response to something with the popcorn emoji. Like, it stopped being funny. The taco thing stopped being funny after the Democrats got a taco truck to the RNC. Like, just give it a break. Give it a break, please. Moving on. At a town hall, Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa responded to concerns about Medicaid cuts within the OBBB by saying, well, we all are going to die. The remark drew criticism for its perceived insensitivity. Ernst later defended her comment, stating it was meant to convey compassion and realism, and called herself a compassionate person. Now, she is correct. We are all going to die eventually. However, what I think the person asking the question was like getting at was that I feel like people would prefer to die after long, healthy lives at the age of 75 to 85, say, give or take, and not at 60 because they can't access the medical care that they need, or their medical care has been cut or stripped. So to say you shouldn't worry about these cuts, you shouldn't worry about your access to healthcare because we're all going to die at some point anyways, is such a bizarre response. And then to backtrack on it and be like, well, no, don't worry about it. Like, it was meant to be compassionate. Like, nobody wants to be reminded of their impending death. And Joni Ernst just like, she's always had a bad attitude, okay? But for her to say something like this is a new kind of low even for her. It's totally dehumanizing the issue that Medicaid is going to be cut by this bill, and not, again, like the person that was asking the question clearly had some sort of tie to being directly affected by these Medicaid cuts, and her response was just like, well, you shouldn't worry. Like, you're gonna kick the bucket anyways. Like, might as well be now. Like, Joni, that means you have one less vote. Moving on from that, though, FEMA's acting director did not know that the U.S. had a hurricane season. Acting FEMA director David Richardson told staff he was unaware that hurricane season had started or that it even existed, a comment that really baffled people. Staff at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, were baffled on Monday after the head of the U.S. Disaster Agency said he had not been aware the country has a hurricane season, according to 4 sources familiar with the situation. That's a lot of sources by journalistic standards. The remark was made during a briefing by David Richardson, who has led FEMA since early May. It was not clear to staff whether he meant it literally as a joke or in some other context. The U.S. hurricane season officially began this past Sunday and lasted through November. This year's season is expected to bring as many as 10 hurricanes. So this is all according to a Reuters article. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA's parent agency, said the comment was a joke and that FEMA is prepared for hurricane season. The spokesperson said under Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Richardson, FEMA is shifting from bloated DC-centric deadweight to a lean, deployable disaster force that empowers state actors to provide relief for their citizens. The issue I'm going to take with that is that there are still people in North Carolina that are like not okay after the mudslides that happened in right around the election in 2024. After Trump like used that whole situation to drum up support for himself and say that Biden wasn't deploying FEMA in the right way or whatever. That's issue number one that I have with this. Issue number two is that, joke or not, this seemed to be a meeting relating to planning for the impending hurricane season. And given the amount of emphasis that Republicans have put on FEMA and calling it politicized and saying that Biden wasn't doing it right, for your acting director to joke and be like, well, I don't, even if it was a joke, if he was to joke and say, I didn't know we had a hurricane season. Like, what do you mean? Not okay. Not okay. If you're trying to say that the agency is not politicized and say we're going to deliver relief to everybody, whatever, then you need to make it clear that you are serious people with a serious plan for how to carry it out. And the fact that multiple people went to the media and were like, craziest thing happened. The FEMA director said he didn't know there was a hurricane season. Makes me believe that the tone in which it was said was not a joke. And it seems like in the Reuters article, it says people didn't know if it was a joke or if he was being serious, Part of what makes me think that it wasn't a joke on his part is that it made people so confused, I think, because it was such an outlandish thing to say. I think if somebody walked up to me on the street, I wouldn't know when hurricane season was, but I feel like I would be aware that it existed just as an average American, but whatever. This whole cabinet, all of the officials, they're so unserious. It's baffling. Every time an article like this comes out, whether it's Pete Hegseth or this guy, Richardson, it just shows that these people are not qualified. Like, he's picking people that will back him, and I do believe that people can learn anything. Like, you don't have to get a job in the field that you studied for. I certainly didn't, but it's really starting to present itself as a problem, especially because a lot of these positions that have come up in the news as like having people in them that are so not qualified, they do require a certain level of knowledge about specified topics, which again, people can learn, but things like when hurricane season is I feel like a basic thing that the director of FEMA should know, considering I would take a pretty educated guess that hurricane season would be when a lot of FEMA aid is going out. So it seems like that should be basic knowledge or basic enough. The last thing I wanted to cover, and this is also why I'm thankful that I waited. Yesterday, Kilmar Abrego-Garcia was brought back to the United States. Now, it was not a reunion where he got to go home and be with his family and his children and his wife. He was brought back to face federal charges. I know this is not a video podcast, but I'm rolling my eyes so hard right now. The article I'm pulling this from is a Washington Post article. I will be sure to link it in the show notes. But first of all, before I even get into what the article says, this just goes to show, keep in mind how contentious this whole case was. They could have brought him back at any time. They only personally and willfully chose to bring him back after charging him, in my opinion, falsely. That's when they decided to bring him back to face criminal charges. First of all, the indictment that he was brought back for prompted the resignation of at least one veteran career prosecutor who headed the criminal division at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nashville, Tennessee, where the case was filed. That should be a red flag. If people are resigning because of an indictment, that would be a red flag that it's fishy. Anyways, from the article. Officials said Friday that they would seek to hold Abrego-Garcia in custody without bail while the case is pending. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said that he landed in the U.S. on Friday and that El Salvador had agreed to return him to the country to, quote, face these very serious charges. Bondi says this is what American justice looks like. If he is convicted, he will serve his sentence in the U.S. and then likely be sent back to El Salvador. The May 21st indictment was unsealed. On Friday in Tennessee federal court, prosecutors accused Abrego-Garcia of being involved in a decade-long scheme to bring undocumented migrants into the U.S. from countries such as El Salvador, Ecuador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Prosecutors alleged in the 10-page indictment that Abrego-Garcia belongs to the MS-13 gang. Oh my God, a claim that we have beaten to death and we know is not true at this point. They also said that some of the migrants that he transported were also members or associates of the gang. Prosecutors said Abrego-Garcia and one of his alleged co-conspirators would often pick up migrants in the Houston area shortly after they had crossed the U.S.-Mexico border. The alleged co-conspirators would then transport the migrants to other parts of the country. Abrego-Garcia occasionally also transported firearms illegally purchased in Texas for resale in Maryland. Prosecutors said an investigation of traffic camera images, cell phone data, and financial records tied Abrego-Garcia to the alleged smuggling ring. It gets better. Just hold on. During a press conference on Friday, Pam Bondi said Abrego-Garcia belonged to the same smuggling ring that was involved in the transport of more than 150 migrants in a tractor trailer that overturned in Mexico, resulting in more than 50 deaths. Now, she brings that up, and that is a tragic, tragic story. But he had nothing to do with that. She's saying he was part of the same smuggling ring that caused that. Okay. Now, as for the circumstances around the specific case, the Tennessee Highway Patrol in May released video of a November 2022 traffic stop that was cited in the indictment. At the time, Abrego-Garcia was pulled over for speeding while driving with 8 other individuals on a Tennessee interstate. He said he was driving fellow construction workers. He was not charged at the time. Quote, "You got a bunch of people in here, don't you?" the trooper asked, and footage of the stop captured on video reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Abrego-Garcia paused, looked behind him, then quipped, "One per seat." At one point, a second trooper told the first he believed Abrego-Garcia was trafficking the people in the car. Quote, "You know what you got here, right?" he asked. "He's hauling these people for money," end quote. On Friday, Bondi said the grand jury that indicted Abrego-Garcia found that he has, quote, "played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler of humans and children and women." U.S. officials didn't take him into custody after the 2022 traffic stop. Asked what facts had changed since then, Bondi said, "What has changed is that Donald Trump is now president of the United States." A couple problems with that, with everything. In 2022, he was stopped. The police officers apparently talk on camera about, "Oh, you know what you got here? He's smuggling people." They did not arrest him. That has nothing to do with Donald Trump not being the president at that time. Like, that would mean that they had to have suspected him of trafficking people and then thought to themselves, Joe Biden is president, it doesn't matter. That's not logical, first of all. The other thing is, to say that this was his full-time job and he wasn't a contractor is kind of wild, considering I'm pretty positive after he was deported a few months ago, his boss came out and was like, Abrego-Garcia is a hard worker, da-da-da-da-da. This does not seem to have been his full-time job. And I am a little bit confused why he was in Tennessee. I mean, I don't know where he lived over the last few years, so that maybe doesn't matter, but this case to me feels very fishy. It feels like a way to gotcha Democrats, because this is what Democrats were so scared of in trying to stand up for Abrego-Garcia and for these immigration things, is that immigration is a rough spot for Democrats, to say the least. So they were very hesitant to stand up in this case because their biggest fear, in my opinion, was that they'd stand up, they'd say, bring Kilmar Abrego-Garcia home, and then some information would come out that was like, he murdered people or did something horrible in El Salvador that nobody could possibly defend, and then they're caught with their pants down after defending this guy and saying, bring him back. That's, in my opinion, what the Trump administration is trying to do. They're trying to gotcha this after a bunch of Democrats stood up and was like, bring him home. I am surprised that journalists did not get to this first, in that I'm surprised this is the first time we're hearing about this traffic stop. However, because it didn't end in an arrest or anything further than just a traffic stop, it's also not that surprising that journalists didn't find it. I don't even know where to frame my thoughts from, because I think, like I said, this is fishy. I still feel horrible for his wife and his children, and I feel like the Trump administration is ultimately playing a game with him, and that's not funny. That's not what serious administrations and people do. That is a human life, regardless of if he's in a gang, which he's not, regardless of if he's an illegal immigrant, which he was not, he was here legally. This is a real person who is directly impacted by the decisions that they're making about his life. And they just don't seem to care. That's the frustrating point, and just the human aspect of this. But beyond that, too, I'm just still caught up on the fact that they were like, we can't bring him home after judges ordered his return, and now they're bringing him home so they can indict him. I hope that now that he's back on U.S. soil, his wife and child are able to see him, and I really, really hope that his lawyers are able to prove that he's innocent. I feel caught up in the thing that I just explained about Democrats don't want to stand up because they're worried that some horrible thing's going to come out about him, I feel caught up in that. I don't want to say the wrong thing about this, which is so frustrating, because beyond the fact of like this indictment, like he is a human and he does deserve dignity and respect. He was not a criminal in El Salvador. He was not a criminal in the United States, as far as we know. He does not deserve to be rotting in prison. So once again, we are keeping our eyes on this case. We will see where the cookie crumbles on this one. It's just maddening. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. I will be back next week. I have an interview with Joni Ernst, who is an author of the book The Herd, When Democracy Falls. She was also a former journalist and diplomat. I had a really great interview with her. I really loved everything about it. We talked a little bit about the media. We talked about her book, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear this interview. It was really insightful for me to talk about the media in that way and just the frustrations that I've had with the media over the last few years. But it was a really good conversation. So that's going to be the episode next week. I also do think that I'm going to start being serious about taking the last week of the month off. It's just been a lot since I started working, and I don't feel burdened by making these solo episodes. I feel like I do need that reprieve of the last week of the month to kind of sort through things for where the next month's episodes will go. So I think I'm going to take the last week of this month off, which doesn't even matter because there's 5 weeks in June anyways. But I guess starting in July, there will only be 3 episodes per month, and we'll see what happens. I think that's all I have for you guys. So be sure to check out the interview next week. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, leave a review, or share it with somebody who could use this information. And as always, if you have questions, topic suggestions, or if you want to be a guest on the podcast, or you just want to say hi, you can find me on social media at Current Affairs Unfiltered Pod on Instagram, or send me an email at currentaffairs.unfilteredpod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Keep asking questions, stay engaged, and remember to know when hurricane season is if you are the director of FEMA. I'll see you guys next week.